Okay, this is starting to cream up really well, starting to thicken, and it's important when you start this to make sure that you get plaster everywhere, because up under some of the shells, the draft, the relief, it'll be hard to do it. And if you don't make a point of pressing some plaster up in there, you'll end up with voids. You know, this is a working model. This is meant to guide your carving, so it isn't as critical. But if you think you're going to put a patina on this and hang it up on the wall, or this is the end product of your clay work, that you're going to have a durable result, you got to think about that. So now that I'm getting to the nice thick part, I'm going to start charging it. Try not to splash it too much so you can avoid your bubbles. You want to work it a little bit to get your bubbles out of it. But once it starts kicking, you got to get done with it. Mixed a large batch and hoping this is gonna do it. I've got almost 2 gallons here. And because this hydrostone is stronger, you don't have to cast it as thick as you do regular plaster, and that's a real benefit. That's another one of the benefits of the dental stone, is that it's so thick, so strong that you can cast very thin cross sections and have a really good result. Yeah, see, this is going to set up well enough that I can do just about 2 gallons of product. Should make a really nice model. The amount you use, you'll learn. Like I said, I've learned I can handle about 2 gallons pretty well. So get beyond that, I tend to have leftover plaster that I can't use. Get it kind of even. Don't forget about your hanger. Get it sort of where it needs to be. Get it down in, and that's it. One of the big benefits of getting your workstation all cleaned up before you work is that when you get done, it's real easy to pick things up. You're not tripping over everything. You can step it over, wash your bucket. Everything can be put away. Materials and plaster are back in the bucket, back in the barrel. And all I got to do is wait for this to set up. Now I mix this properly, and it's only been just a 5 minutes maybe, and it's already hardening up. It's already heating up. It's getting really hot. And we'll let that kick over, go off, and then we'll flip it over and unmold it, and then flip it over, and start wasting that mold off of there. Okay, I've taken the screws out. These come right off. Very easy to do. Now before this cured, when I was running the plaster in, I ran my finger around the edge. And that was to raise this lip so that I could come back in here with something like my 8-9 or a scraper and just bevel that edge. And that'll keep it. This is about 10-15 minutes from when I charge this plaster or charge this mold with plaster. So it's still got a little bit of softness to it. It's not wet, but it sure isn't dry. So that's cleared off. Into the junk bucket it goes. I'm going to flip this over. Now, if I turn this over and bang against this, it may break. So I've got to be careful. I've got to hang it off. I've got to make sure this doesn't foul it. And so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go in here and cut this off. Then I can remove it. I'll have a flat back. Now I've got some old junk carpet here that I can put down to pad it with. You don't have to use the fancy side to get the cushioning effect you want. You can just do it like that. So if your table's fairly clean, it won't be a problem. But I'm going to go ahead and start working this off. It's not real complicated. Now, you can see here's blue that's a guide coat. I don't know if you got too much light here. Years ago, this was all about being cost effective. You take this plaster that you remove now, this is all saved. When you're carving and you're working like a big stone where you're pointing it, or where you're, especially with compasses, where you're coming in and swinging, you'd use this like chalk to mark the stone. Swipe, swipe, swipe. When it's right, you did it. You didn't throw this away, you got to pay for it. So this is all the free chalk you're ever going to want. If you do that kind of work now, you can go ahead and put this stuff up, let it dry. You may not want to use the stuff that's got dye in it, but any of these larger pieces that are white work really well. Remember, you've got bracing, because if you hit that hard and you're trying to cut that piece of, there you go. You just keep working this off. So now you flip this over. I'm going to clean this off, put it in the bucket, and we'll flip this over. Okay, by flipping this over onto this carpet, this also gives me a way to manipulate it without stressing it as much. So now it's just going to be a matter of carving this whole thing off and figuring out where things are, and you can do whatever you need to do. This shows the guide coat really well. See how definitive and clear that guide coat is around here on the side. Real easy to see where you're at. So when you're carving through that white plaster, you can see this is the job right here. That's your investment or your positive. So an easy way to do it would be to work from where I've got a starting point. I've got a point of reference. I'm not trying to find it. So if I start cutting over in here, remove this brace and just work my way up, it'll help a lot. I'll be able to have a lot of control. Just throw everything in the bucket as I go and keep it nice and clean. Okay, I'm making progress here. It's really important. Keep all your debris, trash out of the way, because over here, it's right here, very close. On this side, it's a lot further. There's my edge. Now, I could just go ahead and get greedy, cut down to the fun part right away, but I'm a lot smarter to carefully remove all this backing coat, this mother support off of the register coat, get rid of these braces, and slowly work my way down, because as I'm taking this off, I want to take it off very carefully. I don't want to take off big pieces. I want to take off little pieces so I get a good result. But this is set up pretty perfect. I ran this a little weak. It's still wet and crumbly, so it carves off without a lot of stress. You don't want to dig into it and pry big pieces, because that stress will break your positive. You want to just carve things away and relieve them, maybe cut down, but work these away without stressing the positive, because that positive isn't cured yet either, and you want it to be a little bit moist just in case you've got to slip something to put it back on. This is a pretty flat model. It's not a big deal. If you're doing something that had like a hand or an arm, it would be a lot bigger deal. Fine detail like flower petals that you wanted to slip back on, you've got to work in a very time-sensitive manner in order to be able to meet it where it is, so you might be able to do a successful repair. Otherwise, there's not a lot to glue plaster with. But see, this is still in there pretty well. I'll keep working this and relieve it. It'll come right out, and I'll go up and do the next one and the next one, get these braces up top gone, and then I'll work the whole thing down, because I'll know roughly where things are, because these will give me some registers, because I know those are on top of the register coat. So go slow, don't get greedy and carve the fun parts. Save them till the end, and then they will be fun because they'll come out good. Making pretty good progress here. Getting this off, you can see where the braces have been removed. You can see the guide coat really clear. Because this is pretty soft, pretty wet on the outside, this is flying off, coming off really well. Almost done here at the end. Got a little bit left to take these last 2 or 3 off, and then I'll work it down. As I get deeper and mixed it more accurately, got a harder product, it's noticeably harder to cut. And so that's fine, that's the way I want it. But if I'd mix this perfectly and not soft or wet with too much water, and I can't tell you the exact ratios, it's just, you just learn. But if I'd mix this really hard, it'd take as long to carve this out of plaster as it would to carve it out of soft stone. And that's no joke. And that's a waste of time in my book. So the more you do it, the more you'll learn. This is about developing a working model, not developing a model that's going to be perfect. But this should be pretty accurate. And if you're just a little more, if you slow down a little bit, you get fantastic results. You get really nice. I usually use a rubber or a silicone mold for projects that I want to look really nice. Not a waste mold, but sometimes this is what you do. So I'm going to keep digging. Okay, the waste mold's coming off. And over here I'm starting to get down to the actual real detail of the job. You can see this is the ground, this is a fold, this is a fold. I got a little bite right there with the chisel. But this is something that's important to see. This broke very clean right to there. That's the model that I want. You can see that this line of the register coat, there's actually some white plaster between it and the job in the model, the positive. So it's important to know that you've got to go until it lets go and pops off because you want to get all this off. Now see, there's some air bubbles in here. This isn't going to be a bronze, it's not a big deal. That's the kind of thing that you'll have on your first one. You'll probably have a lot of these digs. You see this comes down. I was concerned here because of this register coat and then the stain, but you can see this is where the fold comes down and then it kicks in right there. So I'm still good here. So this is tedious. This isn't a fast process, and that's why I don't like to do these, is because it's a lot of work for a single cast, and if anything goes wrong, you've blown a lot of time, and time is money. So we'll keep digging. It's progressing along. It's coming out. There's still lots of little debris down in the deep parts. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. I'll get the big stuff loose before it sets too hard, and then I'll go back and I'll slowly work that out. There's a few digs. It's going to happen. Really hard to do a waste mold with a very intricate job. This one's pretty general, so I can kind of fly through it. If you're doing something that's got a lot of detail, they're pretty touchy. You really got to go slow. It's easy to spend, to spend 8 hours on a job like this isn't an understatement. So I mean, you know, you're getting into, you know, if you've got a, you know, per square foot cost, they can take a lot of labor hours. If, you know, this is a 2 to 3 square feet and you figure it's going to take at least a day, if not a little longer, to really do it, to get everything out, stage for it, clean up everything. So just keep going away. Little chips, little pieces, or little mistakes. You can see now I've got the bulk of it off. Going down to the foam stretch here, just trying to get it wrapped up. It's coming pretty well. Don't have any big failures, flaws, haven't dug anything too deep, a couple little picks, but nothing big, and then I'll come back afterwards and get all these nooks and crannies cleaned out. But it's turning out really well. Alright, you can see I got it pretty well wrapped up. I'll have to go around and take off little bits of it here, but I'm going to let it dry a little bit, and I'll clean up all the margins and the edges and everything. I've got a couple of digs here and there, background don't make any difference. Stuff on here, you can take some of your moist plaster that's coming off and just fill the hole. And we're going to gesso this anyways to seal it, help keep it more clean. But that's pretty much it. That's how you do a waste mold. So next morning, I'm set this up on the easel. I need to go back and address the small detail. There's a fair amount of chaff or debris in a lot of these deep spots, and some of it will come right off, but there's others that's going to be rough simply because those were the peaks on the plaster, and when we pulled the clay out, we broke some of those edges, and that's typical. And so you have to remember that, because you can go chasing for what you think is a perfect line that isn't there anymore, and so you may have to create it. I'll use probably a wooden tool. These boxwood tools are really nice. They're sharp enough, but they're soft enough. They also have a very good hardness, and so you can feel the difference between soft, like this white clay, and you'll scrape a little bit, and then it'll go right down. You'll get down to your blue where it transferred, because some of that color will actually float to the top of the guide coat. And so you'll get down, but it stains this other, and so it actually gives you a sort of it tells you both sides of the street. It's kind of cool. So anyway, so I'll go through and clean this up, let gravity help, but it's, see how it looks with the light here. There's a lot of information there that you can use to guide a future carving, and that's the whole point. This is a working model, and it's a great way to capture work for your portfolio. I'll take all these models, put them up on the wall. Got several up there and more waiting, and others hanging around everywhere. So, but this is how you do a waste mold and produce a positive. Going to try to take a little bit of time here. I'll put in feet of both the original clay sketch in the same position, hopefully similar position. Do the clay sketch of the line fold, and then can show this, and then I will show you Morgan's drape cross. So check it out. This is a gessoed waste mold of a simple bas-relief line fold sketch maquette or model. And this will go on the wall here at Carolina Sculpture Studio. Once again, thanks for hanging out. It's a long video. It's hard to do this work quickly and get it on to the video stream and make it work. But I appreciate you hanging around and checking it out. Once again, my name is Clint Button here at Carolina Sculpture Studio. Thanks for stopping by.